The biggest weekend in Canadian film and television is upon us. The Canadian Screen Awards, aka the CSAs, aka Christmas for Canadian content creators. For those not familiar with the CSAs, the Genie and Gemini Awards combined and became the Canadian Screen Awards. So they're basically like the Emmys and Oscars of Canada, all rolled into one glitzy and glamorous show. Today we've decided to dedicate our entire episode to celebrating some of the talented nominees.
It is everything to do about celebrating a woman's body.
We computer generate as if this is somewhere west of Bay and we see City Hall way in the distance.
I have him tattooed on my body. That's actually how much I love Jimmy Stewart.
I'm Amanda Paris, and this is CBC Arts Exhibitionists. I know it's the Canadian thing to be humble, we're not too big on bragging, but I wanted to start our special Canadian Screen Awards episode with a nomination that's close to home. Our digital series, The Move, picked up 2 nods, one for Best Nonfiction Web Program or Series, and another for the man behind it, our very own director extraordinaire, Lucius de Chose. To celebrate our nomination, here's a sneak preview of The Move Season 2.
We're approaching the work in a ceremonial manner. I do call on my grandmothers, especially if I'm doing women's work. It brings in ancestors, but also creating that space for Indigenous voices. Santee Smith, Dagalanyakwa Nyungyats, Gongwehoing Ganyangehaga. My name is Santee Smith, and my Ongwehoe name is Dagalanyakwa, which means picking up the sky in Mohawk. I started dancing as soon as I could walk. I've been told that I would hear music and then just fall into a dream world of dance. But I started formal dance training when I was 3, which is also very young because I broke both my legs. And I was put into ballet to strengthen my legs. I was in 2 separate accidents, and I broke my femur, and I broke my ankle. I was in the hospital for a month, and then I came home, and I was in a full body cast for another month. And really, after all those, I had to learn to walk 3 times. So my whole life really is about learning how to move, and that's just kind of been the theme. I went to the National Ballet for 6 years, and that was very much focused on the classical ballet, which at the time I really enjoyed. But when it came to the years of teens and when you're looking for identity and what you might want to do for your whole career, I don't think I was getting fulfillment in a cultural way about who I was. And I was replicating and telling stories that were outside of my culture. And that grew weary after a while, was not satisfying. So I decided to go home, back to my community of 6 nations, and really just connect to culture. I wanted to be able to tell my stories. The move, which is very essential to being a woman and making that connection to earth and creation, is the woman shuffle. The escalier is how we would say it. And that's a woman's dance in my community. It is everything to do about celebrating a woman's body, and the power that she has, and the power that is connected from her womb to the earth and to the sky. It's related to our creation story of Sky Woman falling from the sky world, landing on the turtle's back, shuffling her feet in a counterclockwise direction, spreading out earth on the turtle's back, which expanded and expanded and expanded and became Turtle Island, which is North America. Actions symbolize tilling of the soil, massaging of the earth, moving the arms like you were sprinkling seeds. So it's like the woman is seeding the earth. It represents our role as sustainers of life. I did a lot of training with Indigenous traditional dancers. It's a process of learning and unlearning. The balletic form generally is about escaping the earth and being uplifted, which is opposite to my Indigenous dance, which is being as close to the earth as possible. So it's pretty much the opposite. When I first started to explore my traditional dance and contemporary dance, I was asked to roll to the floor. Just go roll, do a roll on the floor. I was like, oh, I can't go down because as a ballet dancer, you're never on the floor. And with Indigenous dance, the source is in the ground, and then it comes up through the body, which can then go high into the sky, but the source is low. We call on ancestors, so that's a part of the process, and I ask that creative force speak through me. Let me be a vessel to tell these stories.
In 2019, Canadian animators killed it at the Oscars, and every year proves that we produce some of the best animated shorts in the biz. This week's Exhibitionist in Residence is Patrick Bouchard. You're about to see clips from his CSA-nominated short, The Subject. It might rattle your bones. Coming up, women, children, and ghosts. We have top takeaways from this year's CSA nominations.
One of the nominations that made me do the most double takes was Knock Knock Ghost for Best Reality Competition Series.
The Canadian Screen Awards cover a lot of ground: film, television, web, documentary. So, to give you a quick overview of all the things you need to know for this year's ceremony, here's CBC Arts' very own Peter Knegt.
So I'm sure a lot of you pay attention to the award show celebrating our neighbors to the south, but I'm here to remind you that we have award shows too, and that there's more than a few reasons to pay attention to them. Take this year's Canadian Screen Awards, which we're celebrating in this episode tonight. While the Oscars have only nominated 3 women in their Best Directing category in the past 25 years, the Canadian Screen Awards nominated 3 this year alone in their equivalent film category. And women are killing it in TV as well. There are 15 female director nominees across 11 different categories. One of those female directing nominees was Chelsea McMullen for her work on In the Making. And not to defy traditional Canadian humility, might I add that was just one of 9 nominations that CBC Arts received for 5 different shows. When it comes to directing a reality competition series, Canada is apparently a 2-man show. Maybe next year it's time to spread the wealth. Schitt's Creek stars Eugene and Dan Levy are both nominated for Best Actor in a Comedy Series for the 4th straight year.
Whoa.
What are you doing?
Well, what are you doing?
So, will Dan finally beat his dad, or does Eugene double down? From Father and Son to Holy Ghosts, one of the nominations that made me do the most double takes was Knock Knock Ghost for Best Reality Competition Series.
I'm seeing something right now. They look like they're short, like children's size.
It's up against the Canadian versions of Master Chef, The Amazing Race, Big Brother, and Smartest Person Jr. And what is Knock Knock Ghost, you ask? Oh, just a show about a psychic medium and a comedian traveling across Canada visiting haunted locations.
Too vague. I think that's too vague.
They all join together to do one bad thing.
It's creepy. Very, very creepy.
And that's not the only ghost of this year's CSAs. In the web program or series category, Ghost BFF is nominated for its depiction of two women, one dead and one alive, who travel across space and time. Paranormal film Our House has 3 nominations in the film categories, and we can't forget Frankie Drake Mysteries, which got a nod for Best Direction in a Drama Series for, of course, an episode titled Ghosts. Move over, Jacob Tremblay. There are a pretty astounding number of children and teenagers nominated in the film acting categories this year. These youngsters make up 8 of the 20 nominees. That's 40% kids and teens, and just 5% Sarah Gadon. Martin Short has won the category of Best Performance Animation for 2 straight years for playing the cat in The Cat in the Hat, and he's nominated again. And honestly, is there a more Canadian award show sentence than Martin Short performs Canadian Screen Award hat trick? Good luck to Mr. Short, the Ghosts, the Kids, the Levies, and all the other nominees.
The 1920s were a legendary decade for music, fashion, literature, and art, and audiences get to travel back in time each week to visit that world in Frankie Drake Mysteries. The hit show is up for 5 Canadian Screen Awards this weekend, including production design. Here's the CSA-nominated artist who built this moment in time.
Hi, I'm Armando Scrignoli, the production designer in Frankie Drake. Part of the key of good design is to draw the audience into a space. It reinforces aspects that can never be scripted, as in a script you can only fill in so much. And so when we walk into a character space such as Frankie's, the design should reinforce her character.
What's going on?
You tell me.
What is that supposed to mean?
There is a lot riding on this urn. 10,000 clams, to be precise.
I wouldn't rush to write that check.
All right, Frankie, come on, spill the beans. What do you know about Marion Hartley?
I already told you she's a fraud.
Wrong. Museum curators already verified the urn. You know, expert eye testing, the whole shebang. It's the real McCoy.
Good.
Great.
Here we go. Are we still shooting out there?
Yes.
Oh, we are, okay. So we gotta be really quiet. So it's a hot set, so it means that we're still going to complete a scene. I like to work with our directors really, really closely so that we put everything in front of the camera. So there's its full production value. We also do a little exterior establisher shot, and we computer generate as if this is somewhere west of Bay and we see City Hall way in the distance. We've added a practical freezer where a deceased body would be held until finally it's totally examined.
Our mystery man.
You dug up the body?
With difficulty. And a wheelbarrow.
I'm impressed.
I try to inspire. It always helps to have archival reference photos of what that period really looked like. You know, design is a very collaborative operation. The construction team, the decorating, the scenic, the props, and it's various departments that come together to create that one frame. Henry, how are you? Nice to see you. We never expect the camera itself to focus in on any one thing, but when we pan and walk the character, they all come together and the audience feels, yeah, I know who she is and I really like her.
Coming up, Schitt's Creek star Annie Murphy tells us about the actor who changed her life.
It's just this kindness and this love that kind of radiates from Jimmy Stewart as he plays this part. The actor that changed my life is Jimmy Stewart. He just has one of the most beautiful, kind, expressive faces I think I've ever laid eyes on. A beautiful comedian to a very, very dramatic actor. I mean, ideally as an actor, I would love to be able to slay comedy and drama, although I have a bit of a problem with crying. And then if I do have to cry or be emotional on Schitt's Creek, I think I try to do a lot of like this, or this, or this, or this, or just this.
Well, anyway, I was walking down along the street and I heard this voice saying, "Good evening, Mr. Dowd." Well, I turned around and here was this big 6-foot rabbit leaning up against a lamppost.
His performance in Harvey is one of the most heartbreaking and sweet and funny performances I've ever seen. I could watch it. I could watch that movie back to back to back to back. I have him tattooed on my body. That's actually how much I love Jimmy Stewart. This is a silhouette of Jimmy Stewart and his imaginary friend Harvey.
Oh, well, there you are.
It's just this kindness and this love that kind of radiates from Jimmy Stewart as he plays this part that I don't know, I just find it really I'm gonna cry about it. Is that a thing that's going? All I need to do is think about Jimmy Stewart. That's it, that's the ticket, yes. Oh man, thanks CBC, this has been really helpful. Anyway, go watch Harvey if you haven't seen Harvey. Go do it. What are you waiting for? Get out of here.
Schitt's Creek is up for 15 CSAs, including one for Annie Murphy, who's nominated for Best Lead Actress in a TV Comedy. Another CSA nominee is our own digital series, The Artists. It's a show that follows the pioneers behind your favorite video games. In this excerpt, we meet innovators who are making the case that game design is its own form of art.
Video games are arguably the most important part of interaction design, shaping the way we behave and interact with machines. We knew that there would be a bunch of people objecting to desecrating the halls of our temple of modernism with what is not often seen as a serious form of creativity. It's one of the most important art forms of the 20th century and 21st century in particular. Anytime you're introducing something new, people are shocked by it. When you're breaking new ground, there's always a conservative reaction against that. That's how it always goes. So we decided to make a very minimal approach. The game monitors are embedded in the walls. It's almost like looking at a painting on the wall. To really focus on the interaction, right? The controller, you, the screen, and the tactile experience. If people are going to take games as seriously as we want them to, we have to help give them the tools to approach it like it's anything else at the museum.
Traditionally, you haven't seen a lot of overlap between the people making games and people making films, art, sculpture, painting, music. These are not crowds that hang out and influence one another.
My name is Cindy Paremba. I'm also a member of an experimental art game collective called Kokuromi, exploring art games and experimental indie games. I was seeing all of these different kind of interactive artworks, and it was always a huge challenge to get people to be engaged with interacting with them. On the other hand, people would spend hours playing games. But at the end of the day, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, games are this hugely refined interactive form. Heather and Phil and Damien and I started creating these Gamma events for people who were creating these like experimental independent games. Give people an excuse to make a game that they wouldn't typically have made otherwise. Passage was created for one of the early Gamma events. It's the ultimate anti-HD game.
We want to wish everyone nominated for a Canadian Screen Award the best of luck. Unless you're up against CBC Arts. In that case, we're just giving you a begrudging acknowledgement. Just kidding. We love everyone who continues to create innovative Canadian content for our big, small, and mobile screens. If you know any artists that you think should be nominated for a CSA, send me a message on social media and I'll see what I can do. Our handle on all platforms is @CBC Arts. Before we go, here's a moment from the 2017 CSAs when Paul Sun-Young Lee won Best Actor in a Comedy Series. His speech brought the whole room to tears, including me. Peace.
To my Oma, my Appa, and my Nuna for sacrificing so much for me. 고맙습니다. 사랑해. To my wife, Anna, you are my best friend. You are my muse, you are my love. Without you, I am nothing. And to my boys at home, Noah, Miles, I'm so proud of you. I love you so much. You're my light. You are my hope. And see, anything can happen. Anything is possible. So aim high and keep dreaming.